market's probably opened up a little bit higher, so now the loss has increased.
The normal response of a trader would be to tell head office, but instead Leeson hid the losses. He didn't want to go back to being a clerk. He put the losses into a computerised account called the 5/8 account and altered its software so London wouldn't see what he was doing. His only problem then were margin payments. These are small down payments made on every future. The bank later gets the money back from its clients. The only way to get this money was to ask London, so Leeson took a chance. He told head office it was for futures he had bought for clients. But the clients didn't exist. It was a blatant lie.
From the first time that I do anything, I'm not expecting to survive anything more than 2 days. As you get past the two-day period, then you start to get more confidence because it isn't being found. If it's not found after 2 days, when is it going to be found? To me, it's obvious. If they can't see it after 2 days, then who says they're going to see it after 200 days, 500 days, 1,000 days? You know, so you start to get a little bit, you don't get confident, but you're getting away with it. It's easy.
As the weeks passed, London carried on sending Leeson money. They failed to notice that there was no equivalent money coming in from clients. Leeson had discovered a weakness in the system. He would hide his mistakes and trade out of them in his own time, and no one would ever know. But the weakness that Leeson had discovered was just one crack in an organisation that was falling apart. Baring Securities was in crisis. By the summer of 1992, its operating losses were £39 million. The parent bank decided to move in a traditional banker. His name was Peter Norris.
How shocked were you by the lack of control in that when you got in there and began to work there?
I was shocked. I was shocked. Because I did feel that it should have been allowed to reach that point.
It was a clash of cultures. Peter Norris was a merchant banker. He believed in control and good bookkeeping. The culture he met in Baring Securities was that of the 80s, a buccaneering spirit where controls were seen as a hindrance. They stopped you making money. But as Leeson had discovered, this attitude bred chaos.
There was a culture which said that businesses of that type operated far better in an informal environment than a formal environment. I think that that was a significant error of judgment.
So Leeson's not completely wrong?
No.
Baring Brothers decided to take over Baring Securities. The cowboys of the 80s were kicked out, and Peter Norris moved his own team in. They set about counting the money and imposing controls. Norris became the chief executive. If he didn't stop the losses, Baring Securities might go bankrupt.
If operating losses had continued at the level they were, that could have had a very serious effect on that business's ability to finance itself. Maybe derailed because of that. It was a bad time.
Frightening?
I find it quite frightening, yes.
But the bank's losses were actually much higher than Norris realised. Leeson's deception had gone badly wrong. Throughout the end of 1992, the market had gone against him. As it did so, the losses he had hidden mounted up. The secret 5/8 account turned into a monster with a life of its own. At one point, it held losses of £4 million.
A massive loss. I mean, it was a massive loss. But you know, and the margin payments were increasing. The market was going against me on a daily basis, and something had to be done about it. And the loss was just accelerating. You know, it starts to get pretty frightening. You know, I'm not sleeping at night.
But Leeson decided to go on. He took the classic gambler's strategy. He doubled up. Secretly, he bought hundreds more futures. It was incredibly dangerous and against all the bank's rules. But it meant that if the market did move his way, he would make a great deal of money and wipe out his losses.
Why did I choose to go on? What is the option to choosing to go on and to deciding to go on? You know, you have to realise the loss. I didn't want to cause Barings to lose all this money, so I'm operating in the belief that I can get it back. You know, maybe it goes back to the confidence thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm confident I can get it back at that stage, I suppose.
Then suddenly, in the spring of 1993, the market did move his way. Day by day, he made hundreds of thousands of pounds. And in July, he wiped out his losses.
Success, you know, I was elated. You know, I mean, we had a barbecue at home with some friends and then playing a stupid game afterwards, Pictionary or something like that, all getting pretty drunk around my apartment in Singapore. And, you know, I was happy. The nightmare was over.
There was a big group of us, but we were out on we had like a little balcony. And Nick just said that he'd been under a lot of pressure at work and that he'd lost money and that, but now, you know, he'd recouped the losses and everything was okay. And then I said, well, how much did you lose? And Nick said, £1 million.
I just told her that we'd had a problem and, you know, I'd been covering up a few trades and just told her a figure. I don't know what I used, $1 million or something.
But then reading the book, I find out it was 6 million. I mean, just as well he didn't tell me it was 6 million at the time, because I think I would have hit the real, I fainted first and it scraped me up first, and then I would have sort of torn him off. But I just think, oh, you know, it's unreal, that money. I mean, £1 million was terrible to, you know, I thought, oh, Nick, you know, think about us in the future rather than protecting them.
And don't do it again.
And on the Monday he did it again, by all accounts.
Why do you think he did that?
Because I don't think he wanted to be seen as a failure. I suppose he only wanted, like I said, everyone wants to be seen as a success. I suppose he thought, well, I've done it before and it worked out okay, maybe I can do it again. I don't know why he did it. That's questions I need to ask Nick.
You just lived through 9 months of what you described as a nightmare. And here you are, started it again.
I'm not a psychologist, I can't explain it. But, yeah, I didn't want to let the people down.
Leeson started his deception again. But this time, it was not to cover up other people's mistakes. It was a deliberate fraud. He began to use his secret account to give his clients cut-price deals. He sold them futures at unreal prices, making a loss for himself. He then took these losses and hid them away in the secret account.
My concerns were, here's something that we're seeing which we weren't expecting to see, where the profitability is growing, and one needs to be cynical about growing profits and know exactly how they produced. In May I went down there and met the people that were there. What struck you was that he was a complex guy. There was no doubt when you met Nick that he was complicated and that there were things going on below the surface that didn't come out naturally in conversation. I suppose that my overriding impression was of somebody who was very polite, somewhat overly deferent.
The man standing in front of Baker was actually hiding losses of £94 million. Throughout the end of 1993, chaotic world events had pushed the market against Leeson. He had tried to double up, but this time it hadn't worked. He was now at the mercy of the market. On some days, he lost more than £1 million.
It was out of hand, you know. The market movements that I'm allowing are increasing at the same time. Everything is increasing, you know. My capability to accept the loss, the capability to accept a larger market movement, the capability to accept a larger position. Everything increases during the period, you know, everything's building. I
felt we needed to investigate the operation, and I felt that he as an individual seemed immature and a guy who was struggling with his changing role. But
did you think he was hiding something?
No, I didn't think he was hiding something. I thought he was somebody who